Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Just wanted to thank you all for taking the time in your evening to come and join us. We're about, I think, 13 days away from the midterms, so we're almost at the final stretch. So thank you all so much for coming out again this evening and just trying to play a part in our civic and democratic process. Each and every one of your voices are going to be very important. And I know we say this for each election, but this is definitely a very, very consequential election, especially since with the governor's race, we're going to be getting a new governor because our current governor is term limited. And, we have many new faces for many of the different statewide offices. So now's the chance for you to ask your questions. Early voting is beginning. So let's get rolling and just excited, engaged. So before we do that, I just wanted to give an introduction. My name is Anusha. I am the lead fellow for the Andrew Goodman Foundation here at the Arizona State University. And we are AGF ambassadors. So I see a couple of my colleagues here on this call too. But what we do as AGF ambassadors is we try to spread voter education, voter registration, and also just the concept of civic engagement, especially in a non-election year. So just trying to raise awareness on, what does climate change look like, racial justice, personal favorite topic of mine, subnational diplomacy. So we also try to raise awareness in addition to these different topics and issues, in addition to just our voter registration, voter education. But because we have an election coming up, we have been focusing a lot more on the voting side of things. So that's why we are here today. And yeah, I'm joined with Clean Elections tonight. We have Avery here today to give a presentation before I give my after I give my introductory remarks, and just wanted to go over some important dates and also just where you can vote on at ASU's campus as well, because we have polling locations on all 4 of our campuses, which is very exciting and very great. And now that with COVID kind of not being as much of a challenge, it's going to be great to have party at the polls and bring some sort of normalcy and semblance back to the voting process. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really briefly. I just wanted to show the ballot guide, which I think a lot of you are already familiar with, but in the ballot guide, we have important information on the polling locations and the important dates to be aware of at ASU. So Avery is going to be talking a lot about the general information, but I just wanted to give some information on voting at ASU. So we have polling locations open on all 4 campuses. They're going to be open this Friday, October 28th through November 8th, which is election day. It is closed on Sundays, and it's open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. on all 4 campuses. And then on the week of election day, November 7th, which is a Monday, it's open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then November 8th is 5:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. So keep that all in your mind. And then polling locations on all 4 campuses, we have the Verde Dining Pavilion on the West Campus, Student Center at the post office in the downtown campus, and then the SDFC Maroon Gym for Tempe, and the Cooley Ballroom for the Polytechnic campus. And I don't want this event today just to focus on the ballot guide that we've created, but I'll definitely drop the link once Avery gets started. But this ballot guide does not only has information specific to ASU, but we also have information on redistricting. So what your new districts might be looking at, the different ballot propositions, the yes and no side of things, the candidates, like where you can read about their platforms and bios and such. And then, yeah, we have information on the judicial side of things. I know there's a judicial performance reviews when you get your ballot and you see, like, should we keep this judge? Should we not keep this judge? We have information on there because I know people tend to whiz through that section. So it's very important that you also put the same amount of emphasis and importance with your other statewide office, like the Senate and governor, and also put that with the judges as well too. So that's some important information that we have. Just some general important voting information. October 28th, this is the last day to request a ballot via mail. November 1st is the last day to mail in a ballot, and November 8th is election day. So we even have information too, especially if you're studying abroad or voting overseas. So I'm currently based in Canada, so I requested my overseas ballot in August actually, and I got my overseas ballot now, and it's really cool because I just have to print the ballot out, fill it out, and then scan it back, just upload it into the portal. So it's very friendly here in Arizona, which is exciting. And then if you're voting in person, make sure that you at least have one form of ID to go and vote. So that will definitely be very important to do that. And then here's information again for mail-in voting. But we will have a Q&A session at the end. So if you have any questions or anything that comes up, we'll be sure to direct them to you. But yeah, this is just the updated districts. So I think primarily for us, District 5, District 2, District 1, and then possibly District 7 are going to be the main districts, especially if you're voting for your federal representatives. So that's just to keep in mind, the numbering of the districts have changed. So just to be aware of that. And then, yeah, table of contents, we have the voter hotline, minority voting resources, ballot measures, candidate information, state positions. I know Avery has a section on this, which will be great. And then we have a really big out-of-state student voter population, so you can take a look at that as well too. But without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Avery. I know I'm a little bit early, but hopefully that will be okay, because I know we have a lot of information to get to. And yeah, I'll pass it on to Avery to go ahead and present.
All right, I appreciate that, Anusha. Again, my name is Avery Zola. I'm the Voter Education Manager for the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission. And there's been some confusion. There's another group out there using the Clean Elections name, but that is not us. We are nonpartisan, not biased, and we are the state's only voter education agency. I feel like I have to just say that, clear the air on that. Let me share my screen. So give me a second here. Let me do this. Can everyone see my screen? Can you see my screen, Anusha? Yeah. All right. Let me go to slides.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. All right. So yeah, let's talk about what's on the ballot. We're in the midterm 2022 midterms. What is a midterm? So a midterm election, they're held halfway between the elections of the presidential years, and midterms are important because the midterm is where we generally elect the governor. And also the midterms, we use the popular vote. So there's no electoral college. It's just the popular vote to elect your elected officials in the midterm. Another thing about the midterm is that generally turnout is low for the midterm because there's no national contest on the ticket. So midterms are still very important, but they do historically have a lower turnout. So some reasons to vote. Why should you vote? I'm not going to name all these, but there's some good stuff up here that you can participate in the democratic process. If you don't vote, someone else will. They'll make that decision for you. If you vote, you're going to decide how your taxes are going to be spent. We vote to defend our beliefs. There's soldiers and civil rights workers who have given their lives to vote. We will vote for the next generation, of young people. And low turnout means that important local issues are going to be decided by a small group of people. So that makes even every vote even more important. So I know Anusha went over this, so I really don't have to cover this. But again, the last day to vote early in person is going to be November 4th. Election day is November 8th. And if you have an early ballot, you're going to want to mail back that early ballot by November 2nd to give it enough time to travel to the, back to the recorder's office. I would say mail it as soon as possible. So they say November 2nd, I would say November 1st. There are some new laws from the last legislature that will take effect this year, and there's one that it takes effect next year. We have SB 1329, and this new law, it means that counties are going to post the number of early ballots they have remaining for tabulation on their website. SB 1008 is going to change the automatic recount threshold from a half to 1% to a half of 1%. So it just makes that threshold that much lower before they have to do their charge with doing a recount. And then finally, there's HB 2492. This requires election officials to verify citizenship of federal-only voters. If officials are unable to verify their citizenship, then they won't be allowed to register to vote. So that's different than what it used to be. Previously, federal-only voters will get the federal-only form, and they can still vote for people in Congress or the president, things like that. But with this new law effective in January 2023, that federal-only voter will still have to provide identification. So that's important to know. What's on the ballot? There's a lot of good stuff on the ballot. This is a midterm, like I said, so there will be a governor on there. We'll be having a new governor. There's the U.S. Senate, U.S. House of Representatives. The important thing about that is that's who makes up Congress. So those seats will represent us on the nationwide scale. So those seats are very important. Secretary of State, we will have a new Secretary of State, Attorney General, State Treasurer, Superintendent of Public Instruction who's in charge of education in Arizona. We have a new mine inspector, the Corporation Commission who is in charge of utilities and the railroads and things like that. Of course, the state legislature is going to be on the ballot, and we have the judicial retention election that Anusha mentioned. This is where you get a chance to look at the judges' performance evals, and you can decide if you want to retain or not retain the judges. So yes means they keep the job, but no means you want to get them out of the office. So it's very important. Make sure you fill out the entirety of your ballot. And then there's also ballot propositions that are going to be on there as well. If you would like to download a sample ballot, you can go to the recorder's website. If you're in Maricopa County, you can go to this website here at recorder.maricopa.gov elections, be ballot ready. Or if you just type in beballotready.vote, and then you can get to this area where you can check your status and find out information about what's going to be on your specific ballot. Outside of that, there are also nonprofit organizations and websites that you can go to where they also will distribute a sample ballot to you. So you could always investigate that as well. All right, and so early voting in person. There's a few different ways that we have the options to vote in Arizona. We can vote early by mail, we can vote early in person, or we can vote on election day. So early voting in person, locations are going to be available 27 days before the election, through that Friday of the election day. The hours of operations may be different depending on where each location is, but there's going to be a location at the county recorder's office and other designated locations across the valley or across the county. Sorry. If you vote in person, you always got to bring an ID. So if you go to a vote center or a polling location, or if you go into a polling location to drop off your ballot, bring your ID. And again, you can vote early at a vote center, polling location, or a drop box. Early voting by mail, and this is what I do. I vote early by mail. It's so easy. It gives me lots of time to research the candidates and the judges and things like that. Ballot by mail, we've had ballot by mail in Arizona for over 20 years. In the 2020 general election, about 89% of the ballots cast were early ballots. So that's a lot of ballots cast early. Arizona has the active early voting list. It was formerly the permanent early voting list. We call the active early voting list ABLE. And basically what that means is you have to vote in 4 continuous elections to remain on the active early voting list. If you miss an election, which is including municipal elections, state elections, then you may be taken off the list. And so at that time, you'd have to contact your county recorder and ask to be put back on the active early voting list. So it's just a different change to what we had before. And again, early voting begins 27 days before the election. What are the steps of voting by mail? If you're not on the ABLE, you want to request a ballot from your county elections department. Ballots are going to be mailed out to voters that are on the active early voting list. The deadline to request a ballot by mail is 11 days before the election. I think this year that puts the date on October 28th. So if you have not requested a ballot by mail, make sure you do that by October 28th. And mail back your ballot 15 days before the election date at a minimum. So make sure you give at least 15 days to travel in the mail is what they say, to mail back the ballot, just to be safe. But I think that they officially you can mail it back within 8 or 7 days, but it has to get to the county facilities by 7 p.m. on election night. If it does not, then the ballot will not be counted. You can vote on election day. So again, there's a couple places you can go to vote. We have polling places. Polling locations are going to be places that are assigned by voters by precinct, and voters have to go to that specific precinct or polling location. We have vote centers in Maricopa County, and I think maybe in Pima. I know in Maricopa County has moved to the vote center model, where the majority of the voting locations will be vote centers. That means that any eligible voter can go to a vote center in the county and receive and cast their ballot. Super convenient. Again, got to provide your ID, and polls are going to be open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. on election day. If you are in line at 7 p.m., you will be able to vote. So make sure you just stay in line, and you will be able to cast your ballot. Oh, there's mistakes that we can make on the ballot. So here's some mistakes. If you a vote marked with more ovals is considered an overvote. And what that means is that your vote won't count for that particular contest. So let's say for Secretary of State, let's say you vote for both candidates in Secretary of State. Well, that particular vote won't count, but the rest of your ballot will still count. There's undervoting. Undervoting is when maybe you didn't vote for a particular office, or there's 3 selections, but there's 2 selections, but you only picked one. We call that undervoting. Again, the rest of your ballot will still count, and all your other selections will still count. Use a black or blue pen if you're voting with an early ballot. And before you return your ballot or put it back in that green envelope, make sure that the ink is dry so it won't get all smudged and affect the other races on there. Don't use red ink, because the tabulators cannot pick up the red ink. They can't read the red ink. If you damage your ballot, just make sure you request a ballot from your county elections department. You can mail them. You could request a replacement ballot for the mail, or you could email them at least 7 business days before the election to get your ballot. Don't use a stamp. The green affidavit is prepaid, so you do not need a stamp for your green envelope. It'll just delay the UPS. Just put your ballot in the envelope, and you can drop it in a drop box or a post office box or mailbox. Ballots returned without assigned green envelopes cannot be counted. So don't put your ballot in a regular envelope. It can't be counted. It's unofficial. That's not considered official, so it will not be counted. And early ballots must be returned by a voter, a family member, or a household member, or it can be a designated caregiver. And how I understand it, you can deliver ballots from anyone in your household. Anyone who's living at your household, who's a registered voter at that address, you can then take those ballots and deliver them to a drop box or mail them. Finishing your ballot is very important. Why is that? Because local and state races affect things that directly impact us in our community. Local elected officials are going to have the power to create equitable laws and policies for our communities. Usually the down ballot candidates in races become up ballot candidates. So you may see someone who was a judge a few years ago running for the legislature or for a statewide office. Local elections, our votes matter most, because the less people you have voting for a particular election, the more impact your vote will make. So we know the voter turnout is generally lower on local elections, so every vote was going to count. Lastly, local races are less likely to be influenced by corporations and lobbyists. So our vote is going to hold more weight. It's going to have more of an impact on the elected officials. Therefore, we're going to have more impact on our community by voting in our local races. The judicial retention, again, the judicial retention election, you can find more information on this at azcourts.gov/JPR. There's a judicial performance evaluation tool that gives us information about the judges. The process was established in 1992 from a proposal that was approved by voters. And of course, there's ballot propositions. Propositions are able to be sent to the ballot by local jurisdictions, the legislature, and citizens themselves. In order to gain official ballot status, the proposition has to reach a certain amount of petition signatures, and they have to be submitted to a filing office. So sometimes that's the city, sometimes that's the state, the Secretary of State. And again, the Secretary of State actually has great content on their website. If you want to understand the ballot propositions, they have arguments for and against, and you can also see what organizations are supporting these arguments or these the propositions or against the propositions. They give you some insight on what effect they may or may not have. So how do you get informed? It's important to get informed. Voters who are informed on the issues and positions, they can make better decisions. They make decisions based on their community needs, and they can make it without being influenced by, political ads and things like that. How do we get informed? Well, you could subscribe to a newspaper or like your local newspaper publication like that. Find out what's going on in your, in your neighborhood, in your city. Read about American history from a variety of different perspectives. They call America the melting pot. So not one perspective is the right perspective. You got to kind of put them all together, and then you can get a better idea of what a particular community is going through or where they come from on a particular issue. Just makes you better able to engage in dialogue and civil discussion. You want to learn how to identify false information. That's important. Politics is they call it the political industrial complex, billion-dollar industry. So there's money to be made in misinforming the masses and public. So you want to make sure that you learn how to identify this false information that's being propagated out there to the public. You want to make sure that you're watching debates. Debates are an important it's important, but it's a great way to see exactly how your candidate responds to a certain question or certain issues. I don't know if anyone has watched a debate before and then decided they weren't or that they were going to, vote for a candidate. Sometimes you could change your mind on a candidate by watching a debate. So Clean Elections has debates on our website, and they're also on our YouTube channel. We have debates for the statewide candidates, and we also have debates in all 30 legislative districts that have races or contests. And lastly, you want to research the candidates. You want to use resources like our voter education guide, our website, the azcleanelections.gov, news articles. Also, Anusha mentioned ASU has a great resource. I would take advantage of that to get informed on what's going to be on the ballot and how you can participate. All right, so how do we spot false information? So we want to be skeptical of headlines. The headlines is too grandiose, too outrageous. You might want to be skeptical of that. You want to look closely at the link. Is it saying that it's something government, or is it talking about the government or something official? Is it in a .net, or is it, is it .gov, which is generally a trusted source because it's coming from the government? Is it a .org? .orgs can go either way. They can be partisan. They can, so you want to make sure you look at the link to see if there's a bias and to see if it's credible or not. And you want to investigate the source. Sometimes you have an article and it'll look official, but it's just a blog. And we all know blogs are just opinions, just people's opinions. So you want to make sure that you're getting accurate information and it's actually a credible government agency or a credible news source. You want to watch for unusual formatting. So a lot of times when you go to these false information links or news articles, there'll be lots of misspellings. There'll be capitalizations where they shouldn't be. Things like that, misspelled words, because someone may be from a different country and they're trying to type, in English and it's not translating correctly. So you got to watch for the format, read through the article. You want to look at the dates. There's articles, they can be talking about something that happened, 10 years ago, and they might address something that happened 80 years ago, or, they could be talking about something that you think is current, but really happened in the 90s. So you want to make sure that you look at the dates and make sure that the dates line up and then they match. Look at other reports. A lot of times articles will like to cite reports in their articles to seem more prestigious or to add credibility, but go and look at these reports. Sometimes reports are just from hacks or from junk science. Sometimes the reports will lead you to a link that's not a report at all. It's just a blog, or someone has a website on WordPress. So you want to make sure that it's a legitimate report from a think tank. And if it is a report, you still got to consider if it's biased or not. You got to consider if it is a story a joke or is it satire. So I've been gotten by the Onion before. Anybody been gotten by the Onion? You see articles like, "Oh, that's terrible. How can America? How can we do that?" But it's just satire. So you got to be careful of that too. Sometimes it's not meant to be news. It's meant to make you laugh. It's meant to be humorous. So make sure you look into the article and before you reposting it, and read like, "Oh, I'm outraged at this," and it turns out not to be true. So then everyone looks foolish. So, and I've actually done that before. That's how I know. Some stories are intentionally false. I said a little earlier that there's billions of dollars to be made in the political industrial complex. So certain groups that have, that they purposely will put false stories out there. That maybe they have a partisan angle for it. They want to make one party look bad. Maybe they are from a different country and they want to, try to disrupt our democracy. So not everything that you see in print is going to be real. And I also want to say that it's important to look at credible sources because credible sources generally means that they can be sued if they, tell a lie. A lot of times, if you look at an article in a news story or expose, they report something, and if they made a mistake, they have to come out and say the mistake that they made or correct that mistake. But Joe Blow on a blog somewhere, sitting at his desk writing about some issue, they don't necessarily have to come out and apologize or correct that mistake. So that's why it's important to make sure that the source is credible because news organizations are held at a different standard when they're reporting information. And lastly, you want to identify fake accounts and bots on social media. How do you identify a bot? Some of the ways that I identify the bots, and you can also look this up. If you go to the profile picture and the profile picture is odd or there's no profile picture, if they don't have anything in like any details about them, if their friend list is really small or if it's really big, it can be a kind of a sign. Hyperactivity is another one. If this person is posting, 50 times a day, they might be a person that just doesn't have a life, or they could be a bot. You probably should stay away from both of those things, But if they're just continuously posting, that's signs of a bot. If you go and you look at their friend group or not their friend group, but if they're posting in various multiple languages, like they have people from all over the world posting on multiple languages, that might be a bot. So if you have any suspicion that you're dealing with a bot, go ahead and flag it and report it. And the social media knows what to do with it after that. Just a little note on some data with Facebook. They reported that they removed more than 6.5 or 6.59 billion fake accounts from October 2018 through September 2019. So if you were on the internet from October 2018 to September 2019, you may have been talking to one of these Facebook bots. You may have been arguing with a Facebook bot, which is even worse. So keep that in mind. Where can you check your ballot? You want to check your ballot after you voted. Go to Arizona.vote. This is a service provided by the Arizona State Secretary or Arizona Secretary of State's website. You go there, go to Arizona.vote, and it'll tell you tons of information about your ballot. You can even register from there, but most important for right now is that's where you check your ballot after you voted. Election results. So the first official election results that we receive generally are on election night at 8 o'clock. So any election results that you hear before then are unofficial. 8 o'clock, they have a good indicator based off of the amount of votes they have to start reporting the election results. Outside of that, you have to wait until the official canvass is completed by all the districts that goes to the counties, and then all the counties, they send that information to the Secretary of State. And at that point, the Secretary of State releases the official canvass with the official election results. And that doesn't happen overnight. That can take anywhere from a week to 2 weeks. So you just want to be mindful of that and know that the counting and the tabulation is a process and it does take time. So azsos.gov is where you can find the official canvas. Resources. There's lots of resources. These are trusted resources. If you're in Maricopa County, go to beballotready.vote. Arizona.vote again is where you can check your ballots from the Secretary of State's office. azcounties.org. This is a pretty cool website from the county because it has information on all the county candidates running for elected office. So if you go to there, they do have candidate information, education information available on their website. azsos.gov. They have tons of information on the initiatives, on the candidates, on voter registration data, on election history, lots of information on there. You can go to the irc.az.gov. That is the Independent Redistricting Commission's website. Anusha presented some material from that a little earlier. That's good to know, because if you want to check the boundaries of your the redistricting of where your legislative district is now, you can go to that website and they have it all mapped out. I know Clean Elections has received a lot of calls complaining that we sent them the wrong voter guide, but really they just were unaware that there's been redistricting and their district has changed. So that's important to know. azcourts.gov, if you want more information on the justices, you'll want to go to azcourts.gov/JPR. Take a look at those judicial performance reviews, and that will let you know where the judges stand, and then you can make a better decision, an educated decision, informed decision on which judges to retain or not retain. And then we have azcleanelections.gov, which is our website. Tons of resources for voter education. If you think about you want to run as a clean candidate, you're also able to do that and get more information on that, as well as polling locations, who your elected officials are, all kinds of good stuff like that. Accessibility is important. So we do have disabled voters, or voters who have accessibility issues, but they still are, are valued voters. Every polling location should have accessible voting devices. Every polling and vote center should be ADA compliant. There's resources there for the deaf, blind, and hard of hearing. They're going to have alternative ballots, which are Braille and these large format ballots. They look like posters. There's also special election boards. If you know anyone that has that is in a hospice, and maybe they're bedridden, they can't get out to vote, the counties actually have someone that can come to their home or to their dwelling and assist them in voting. The only caveat to that is staff is limited, so you want to make sure you get that request out as soon as you know that you will need that. So there are special election boards available. Voters, many voters don't know this, but voters with disability have a right to bring any person of their choosing into the polling location with them to help them assist with the voting process. If you have a concern, if you're disabled or not, if you have any concern while you're voting at a voting location, you want to contact your county recorder or your county elections department immediately, because they will be the ones to be able to rectify that, since the counties are over voting. And of course, we have Clean Elections resources. We have a voter education guide, which has all the statewide and legislative candidates in it. It also has contact information to your county election directors and recorders. One of my favorite tools that we have is our voter dashboard. If you go and put in your address in our voter dashboard, it'll tell you all kinds of cool information, like when and where to vote, what's on your ballot, who your elected officials are, what candidates are running for office, and a whole bunch of other logistical information. So that's always ground zero. I like to say that the voter dashboard is a great place if you just have never, you don't know anything about voting, and you want to start learning about how to vote and participate in civics in your community. Go to the My Voter Dashboard. It's an excellent resource. Again, we have our debates. Debates are very important. Like I said, you could hear the candidate speak on the issues directly from their mouth. We have a candidate compass tool that if you put in information and like your values and beliefs, it'll line you up with a candidate either that's in the state or the legislature. We have an ID at the polls quiz. If you're unsure of what kind of ID that you have, like maybe you don't have a traditional state ID, but you may have some other IDs, you want to put it together and still vote, take our ID at the polls quiz, and it'll walk you down a path to to figure out what ID that you have and what will work. And of course, our website again, azcleanelections.gov. So there's lots of things you can do to activate your political power. Volunteer. You can contact your representatives, your city council, town members, legislators. You can start a petition. You could boycott. You could support organizations or companies with your dollars. You could boycott. You could remove or withhold dollars from organizations or a company for a certain cause. Get involved in your local chamber of commerce, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Attend the legislative or city council meetings and hearings. I can't say this enough. Go to those hearings. You can sign into a RTS, which is a request to speak system. The first time you sign up for the system, you have to be at the Capitol, but after that, you could sign in and speak on different bills from the comfort of your own home. Help other people register to vote. I know in my family, that's me. I'm usually the person that they come to when they have questions about elections or where to go. And I'll tell them, go to azcleanelections.gov, and they'll still say, well, but they still want to ask me questions or whatever. Mobilize for a cause or important issue. You can join a political organization. You can join a campaign, or attend or organize a rally. You can work at a polling place. They're always looking for poll workers. Of course, you can donate. And then lastly, you can vote to activate your political power. Lots of things you can do. That is my spiel. I thank you for your time, and I will leave the floor for questions.
Awesome. That was really great information. Even I learned quite a bit as well, despite me doing this work for such a long time. So thank you so much. I think one important distinction that people should keep in mind when it comes to the midterm and presidential elections is we're actually voting for these local and statewide offices that are going to have more power and more say. It's going to have more of an impact on us in comparison to the national elections. Not saying that the national elections aren't important, but they still, like, these midterm elections play a key pivotal role. And it's important not for people to sit this election out, especially since we have a lot of new faces on board for many of these top positions. So we dropped a couple of links. There's also information. Avery, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can still sign up to be a poll worker. That's correct, right?
Yes, absolutely. They're always looking for poll workers, so that's much needed.
And you also get paid, so
And
take advantage of that. Yeah. And I think even if you're in high school too, there's also an option for you as well. If you want to work as a poll worker. But yeah, nevertheless, if you don't want to work at the polls, still come out and turn out and vote, because that is also important. It's in a way that you're engaging with the democratic process. So thank you again so much, Avery, for that. And now we'll open it up for questions. I don't know if anyone from the audience has any questions.
Yeah, I have something I can ask really quick. I know that there are a lot of people who have been like questioning the validity of like the election process in Arizona. So what is your advice on like how to engage with people who believe that, or what is your advice for those people in general?
Yeah, well, I fielded a lot of calls. I still, every once in a while, I'll take a call about, the audit and things like that. And really what I tell voters is that all the elected officials in the state of Arizona certified the election that was fair and free, the governor, and many of these people are from, the Republican Party. Aside from that, I also point to the fact that during that election, a lot of conservatives, a lot of Republicans actually won their seat. So it was actually a positive election for Republicans. So to say that there was some kind of nefarious activity, it really doesn't add up. Plus, there's ample information online at the Maricopa County Recorder's Office website. And lastly, what I tell them is that the county has tours where you can actually go. I mean, not during an election, but they have tours where they will go and show you the process of tabulating the ballot, and you're free to ask questions about the process. So that would be what I would say is if you have any questions, contact the county, and they'll be more than happy to walk you through the process to kind of, alleviate some of those concerns that people may have. But that's what I say. That's what I say.
Oh, that's a really great question. Thank you so much for that, Ella. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, I actually have one, because this has been something that I was thinking about when you were going over your false information slide. Oftentimes, sometimes the Twitter accounts have a verified blue check, and oftentimes that tends to associate like, oh, they're giving factual information. What happens, in this instance? Like, can you always trust someone who has a blue check mark on Twitter? How do you explain that to someone who believes that, like, oh, this is verified factual information?
Oh, yes. That's a good point. And I actually just started getting acclimated to Twitter again, like the last 2 years, I would say. But yeah, same thing, because I know they give a lot of celebrities the blue check and things like that. So you can't really go by that. That's not real. That's not a good indicator of a trusted source. I would still rely on the news, the credible news outlets, and also government resources or government websites to get your information from. Because a person with a blue check could say anything, and who knows? maybe they'll take it down. Maybe it's still propagating. They haven't taken it down yet. So yeah, don't trust those. Good
No,
question.
yeah, no, I was honestly curious about that because we often see that going on. Tiffany asked a question in the chat. She said, what are some credible news sources?
Yeah. So what I would say is credit, and you have to kind of like use your own judgment, but a credible news source is probably like I would say, for instance, like stuff that is like your local news, NPR, I would say, some people will say that they're partisan, but things like that is what you want to look at people that have been doing it for a long time and that kind of give takes on both sides. So we know the ones that are partisan. So I would stay away from those if you want like credible news. But as a state agency, I can't say this news site, this news site, this news site, this news site is the ones you should go to. I can't really do that. But like I said, I would just go and the ones who have been around for a long time, they have a reputation. Yes, that's the first thing I do. So, and the locals, some of your local news or town news is pretty credible.
Yeah, no, I can definitely allude to that as someone who has worked in the local journalism space. Our student newspaper, especially for students, would be also a great resource to check out as well too. We have a politics desk, so they'll tend to report on different polling locations and maybe different links and just anything relating to the election and how that might pertain to the ASU students, especially if you're wanting that student perspective in. So I think also checking them out as well will be a really great resource. But yeah, alluding to your point with the local journalism, I think they will have more of an impact and more of a say because they know the dynamics of the state compared to reading the news from the national big journalism places. They have great information. I'm not denying that, but oftentimes the local journalism sources would be great because they are, in the state and they know the trends and dynamics on what is going on currently. So yeah, I just wanted to add that point as well too.
And I just wanted to add to that if you go online, you can look up non-biased news sources, and there's actually a chart that they give you where it has neutral, and then it shows you news sources that are on the right and news sources that are on the left. So just to read it for some of them, I have like AP News. They would say that's pretty neutral. Reuters. Some of these are questionable, but go look at something like that and it'll give you a better idea of it. And it's just Google credible news and then go to images and you'll see the chart.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I've done that a couple times before as well. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And then we got another question. The question is, are there any specific ballot measures that you can expound on here? Maybe Prop 211 and others?
Yeah, let me actually have some stuff on that.
Yeah.
Pull that up. 211. Yeah, so Proposition 211 is a citizen initiative. That means that voters put that on the ballot, and it requires independent expenditures of more than $50,000 on the statewide campaign or $25,000 on the local campaign to disclose the names of all original sources who contributed $5,000 or more. And that sounds like something to just combat dark money. They just want more transparency in the donations.
Are there any propositions pertaining to education, especially coming from a student perspective as well? I know there's 308 with the DACA students. I'm not sure if there's anything else for other students.
Let me look. This specific to education?
Yeah.
I'm looking through here.
Yeah, I know there's a lot this.
Yeah, there is.
Quite a bit for this election.
I only see, I only have the 308.
Okay.
Yeah, and other than that, there's just initiatives like Voters' Right to Know Act, Predatory Debt Collection Protection Act, and the Arizonans for Free and Fair Elections Act.
Okay, yeah. And also a really cool initiative too that's on there is creating a lieutenant governor position as well.
Yeah,
I think we're only one of the very few states who doesn't have that position. So,
right.
if it does get a yes, that will be kind of interesting to see if we have to have a whole nother election for that. Will the governor appoint that person? So more information, more excitement to come.
Yeah, I'm excited because right now the secession goes, the Secretary of State will take the place if anything happens to the governor.
Right. Mhm.
I think that would be cool.
Awesome. Yeah. And then we got one more question. This is relating to the judicial performance review.
Yeah.
This is relating to any tips for how folks can critically analyze the judges on the ballot, maybe what to look for.
Yeah, look at their performance evals and their ratings. They give them specific ratings on their temperament and how they manage the courtroom and things like that. So if you've ever been in a courtroom, you'll probably have much more insight on what some of these things mean. But I would trust the eval. So if the eval rates a judge negatively, then you probably don't want to retain that judge. You know, overall their overall score. And if they rate them positively, let's keep him on the bench so he can keep doing good work. So that's what I would do. Another thing that I do personally is anytime I want to know, like I can't figure out this candidate, I'll go to their social media and see what they're talking about on social media, because a lot of times that's where you find out like really what people are thinking. And so I'll find the judge, I'll go to the social media and see what they're talking about, because the judges they don't list their party on the judicial performance review or the retention election. So if you say you want to know their party, you just got to know. You can go to their social media. You can kind of see like the verbiage they use in rhetoric, and you say, oh, okay, well, this judge is an R or this judge is a D, but that's something that you can do.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have anything? Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Avery, for answering all of our questions. This has been great, giving us tips on how we can critically engage with our ballots a lot more rather than just, going what's on the news or what others are doing, and just trying for us to make our own independent choices when it comes to these elections. And yeah, thank you all so much to the audience for asking questions and coming and participating. We hope this was really insightful, and glad that this is being recorded as well too, so that people can also check out any information that they might have missed and important information in regards to the ASU polling locations, redistricting and whatnot. So we all hope you have a great evening, and thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you to Avery for presenting.
No problem.